What is up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Unboxxd podcast. We take controversial topics, we unbox them, we talk about them, we get flack for them.
Yep.
Most of the time we are right, which we'll get to. Don't worry about that. My name's Cody Adams. I'm your host. I'm always joined by my beautiful co-host, Mr. Chris Boats. How
Glad
are you,
to be
buddy?
here,
Everything
man.
good?
This is our first episode in the new
Yes,
office,
yes.
Kinfolk headquarters. We got this insane mural behind us.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Which it's incredible over here. But this is a very important one.
It is.
And why are we doing this?
Yeah,
why are
well-
we doing this now?
Well, we took a little bit of a hiatus.
Yep.
Some would call it a sabbatical, if you will. And we made a decision. We were talking with each other. We
Yeah.
want to get back to it. One, because we got 40-ish days when we're recording
Exactly.
this before one of the most, if not the most important elections that have really we've ever seen in the country's history.
100%.
And we feel the absolute urgent need to make sure that we have done and we will do everything possible to get our guy to win
Yep.
for democracy, for freedom, so on
Yeah.
and so forth. And look, if we do end up losing, we never want to say
We didn't do what
could
we
have
could.
done more
Yeah.
or just like you said. So
Yeah.
we're going to jump right into it. We're not going to catch up with each other. That is for more episodes down the road. We will send you and give to you and provide to you 3 different episodes over the course of the next 40 days. We're going to cover everything from immigration to assassination to the debates. We're going to cover policy. We're going to cover all kinds of things
Yep.
over the next 40 days. We're going to start with immigration.
Okay.
Talk to me a little bit. We've covered this before.
Well, yeah, I mean, so just jump into what you said. I think the media says way too much that, this is saving democracy. This is the most important election. But this one truly is. I mean, we have weird stuff going on. We have the rigging of rules, which ties into the immigration, which is not just accidental. These people are not that dumb. It's all intentional.
Correct.
We've had assassination attempts as if they're no big deal on a
Just
sitting president.
complete desensitization of
Yep.
a true assassination attempt, actually 2 of them, and what that actually means. It's a human life.
Correct.
And it's getting
means
brushed
nothing.
under the rug.
Yeah.
We'll get there, man, but it's just
and the
insane.
media is using rhetoric that he's the biggest threat to democracy by not allowing democracy and letting the people decide who they want. I mean,
Interesting.
they've done stuff not only censoring people, the Biden campaign. I mean, they censored him. They've spied on his campaign. They've tried to remove him off the ballot. These are acts that literally are authoritarian, and the people like to throw out fascist or communist, but this is literally what a fascist government would do. Is use the media to hide stories that are not good for certain people. They censor certain people. They want him off the ballot, and guess what? They try to use the judicial system to get him off, try to do all these crimes, which are absolute bogus, which we can dive into that perhaps in a different episode. And none of it's worked.
Well, you got 3 branches of government. You have legislative, executive, and judicial.
Right.
And they're using every single pawn,
Correct.
every single
Correct.
rook, every single chess piece they can to make sure that this guy doesn't get in.
Yeah. And when all that fails, what is the final straw?
You got to kill the guy.
You got to kill the guy.
I mean,
they
it's
couldn't
it's
stop him legally.
incredibly-
They couldn't censor him enough. And that just goes to show the absolute support that people have. So when they talk these polls, oh, they're tied, this and that. Are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's something to highlight here that has to be said. I hear a lot of folks still spewing rhetoric that they hear, still spewing the same headlines that they get from mainstream media and left-wing media specifically. And it's silly, and it's so surface level, and there's no discernment, there's no real research going on.
Correct.
But with that said, I keep hearing this thing when I speak with maybe some of our friends that are of the left, and they keep saying things like he's selfish, and he's doing this. Why is he running for president? And it's for his ego and so on and so forth. And you think about this. I don't know about you. I'm not a billionaire. You're not either.
No.
Nobody here is watching
No.
is a billionaire. But I beg to differ that a billionaire's life's pretty fucking cool.
Incredible.
You ride around on a 737. You have huge, unbelievable mansions all over the world. You have golf courses all over the world. You have multiple businesses. Your family's running all of your businesses for you. You're at the end of your life. You love a country, and you make a decision to go through so much bullshit.
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 Yeah.
For what? because of his love of country. He
Correct.
doesn't have to do this.
Correct.
He doesn't have to run.
Correct.
Kamala wants to run and has to run because somebody's putting her up to it. We'll get there in a second.
Yeah, yeah.
But the guy doesn't have to run. So it's to say that it's selfish. How is it selfish? Last time I checked, you're a human being. Okay, most of the people watching, no offense, you guys are scared to go on a roller coaster. You're scared to jump off a fucking curb the wrong way. You're scared to get on an ATV, public speak.
Yeah.
This guy is going and playing golf knowing that someone's probably going to take his head off, going and
Still
rallying and going to all these places. He might have somebody that's a mole inside of his Secret Service. We'll get there.
Yep.
Got all kinds of crazy stuff. This guy is his balls, the cojones, the moxie, the grit, the grind, the determination to become president. I mean, if that's selfish, then sign me the fuck up.
Well, so let's go back to the immigration part.
Sure.
I mean, this has been going on. The second Biden came in, they used executive orders to basically get rid of the Remain in Mexico policy.
So for those folks, Remain in Mexico, what that looks like. When was that enacted? It was in the Trump era.
Administration.
Remain in Mexico.
Yep.
And then as soon as Biden got in, he signed 39 executive orders. What's an executive order and how does that work?
It's basically the president with his pen can change the law.
Correct.
Doesn't have to go through Congress, doesn't have to go through anything. And all the policies that were working, they immediately removed. Now, again, this is not incompetence. And all the actions over the last 3.5 years show that there is some agenda. There is a plan to it. And they intentionally...
It's on Agenda 2025.
Not agenda, yeah, which that's another thing. If you're buying
funny.
into that, then, you know,
Insane.
you might be hopeless. But executive order, get rid of Remain in Mexico. So when folks come over here, where Trump would just say, yeah, you just got to wait over here and we'll do your, what is it, amnesty or what do they call it?
We'll grant you immigration.
Yeah.
Legal.
We'll wait for your case and you'll have to stay in Mexico. But guess what? They removed that, stopped building the border, and now we have the estimations, what they say is 15 to 20 million. And we all know that's only what they're perhaps catching. And it's probably double or triple that.
You know, it's an interesting stat on that. So if you look at 20 million illegal immigrants over the last, let's call it 3 years, did you know that 40 million immigrants legally have come here and are legally living here? So you're saying 40 million people came in the right way, took the test, did the paperwork, remained wherever they were, got their green card, came in, got work visas, did this whole rigmarole. And those people, by the way, those of you that are watching, you guys are pissed and you should be.
Yeah.
And your voice needs to be lifted up higher and higher and higher. Please do so.
Yeah.
But you're talking about half of the legal migrants that have come here, half of that population have come over illegally over the past 3 years.
They cut the line.
Unbelievable.
And to think that this is just their compassion, they want to help people. I mean, these aren't just women and children. And frankly, I mean, if you look at the humanitarian crisis going on at the border with human trafficking and these poor innocent girls getting raped, I mean, it is horrific. And these are people coming from literally China, you have people from the Middle East, Africa, these countries.
So they're not just refugees that are women
that are just
and
innocent,
children.
just want a better life. That's not what it is.
It's not the Hispanic community coming over wanting a better life
No,
either.
frankly not. No. And so it begs the question of, so why would they do this? Well, again, we don't have to go too much into 2020 because we don't want this getting censored. But, you know, I think they knew what happened in 2020. They definitely changed some laws to make sure that it worked in favor of Biden. And then they knew that, well, perhaps when Trump runs again, we're not going to be able to pull this same nonsense because too many people are watching.
Correct.
So what this was, it's really simple. This was their insurance policy. This was flood them into the country, not just flood them into Arizona where we're located or into Texas or California. This was get them in, bus them to Chicago. Yeah, bus them to New York, fly them. In fact, they were flying, I think, 300,000 people at a time, you know, on private planes over to the United States.
Yeah.
And so why would you do that? Well, not only does it change the census data, right, to put in more Democrats, but
put in more Democrats congressionally, Senate.
Exactly.
If you have more population, you guys got to understand this, you have more population within inside of your state, you get to add delegates, you get to add congressmen and women, you get to add senators.
Correct.
And that changes
everything.
The Electoral College.
Everything.
The Electoral College, like our state, for example, used to be 8, I think it's now like 11 or 12, and that's because our population is growing. California, for example, New York, for example, have the biggest number on the weight scale for the Electoral College because of their population. So if you can put more specific type of people that are coming over and that ultimately are loyal, They're voting a certain way because they're loyal to the people that brought them over.
Yep.
So they're going to continue to vote that way
Yep.
and ultimately go into those states and then change the way that the heat map works. And if you've ever seen if you've ever seen the United States of America during an election specifically, you'll see there's about 7 or 8 states that are blue, and the other 42 or 43 are red.
Yeah.
And that's because the most densest populations, the biggest amounts of people delegated in those cities, whether it be Illinois or whether it be New York or California or whatever the case is, those are people that are ultimately the Democratic Party within inside of those big cities.
Correct.
But you're right, they're flown in. You got the guy, he's a former chief of the border and ICE and Homeland, or I don't know if it's Homeland Security, but he just testified in front of Congress stating that there was 2 flights a month from San Diego. He was at the border. He was the guy, the chief border guy. I forget what his name is, but he was just testifying saying there's 2 flights per month that flew $150,000 per flight, flew full flights all across the country, flying illegal immigrants all over the place.
Yeah.
And stating that he couldn't report the crime that was going on. He couldn't report how many people there were terrorists. He couldn't report who they were.
They didn't want that.
Could not report any of those things. He just testified in front of Congress.
Yeah. And where are they shipping them? A lot of them are being shipped to places like Ohio. I'm sure you've heard of these states that are
They're eating
swing
the
states.
dogs.
They're
eating the cats.
Which is actually true if you look it up.
Yeah.
You know, they fact check Trump on that debate, but it's really astonishing what's going on. They're not reporting the crimes. In the last debate with Kamala and Trump, which, I mean, it was so clearly that they were in favor of Kamala and not Trump, fact-checking Trump live when they weren't even accurate, and saying that you know, all these stories are absolute nonsense. It's just the craziest thing, you know?
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems. And the issue is, and this
like
is
even in Colorado with immigration, you look at the Venezuelan gangs that are there. Well, how did those folks get in?
Yeah.
You know, what type of crime? That's real crime, guys.
Yeah.
These are real things that are not being reported in the crime statistics that are across the country because they don't have to. And if you look back, I think it was 2021, there was laws passed across the country that specific states and specific cities do not have to report their crime within inside of their city. They don't have to accurately report their crime. Well, if that domino falls in 2021, and then now we have 2024, you know, and you look at, crime is specifically up 40 or 50%. If you look at it statistically.
When they actually reported the real numbers.
That's just reporting real numbers.
Correct. Once the FBI adjusted for it, turned out that Trump was right. Not only that, these folks are, there's people who work in Ohio that work at the grocery store and they swipe their EBT card or debit card, and they're testifying that they have benefits, sometimes $20,000, $30,000 of cash there for food and housing. That is more than the people there have.
Yeah, but
a lot of people have.
I grew up there, man. I grew up on, you know, EBT and food
and I'm not
stamps
saying
like
I'm
that.
against it by any means for American citizens, number one, and people that are struggling.
Well, the reason why I say that is because I grew up on that. I remember sitting at, you know, the offices in California, specifically, this is where I lived when I was a kid. I remember sitting there with my mom and applying, and how long of a wait and all the paperwork that she filled out and all this stuff to get like $500 a month.
My dad's on it.
So it's like you look at that,
$500 a month.
But then these guys just come over the border and they just get, you know, $2,000 a month and a cell phone and a place to stay.
And this is all part, and this is why this election is so important, is they are rigging the game in their favor forever. That's why they've done it.
Yeah.
And
it's called the Great Replacement.
And it is. And I think it's one of the perfect examples of, like, you know, think of, you played football, I played football. Think of, you know, the NFL. So the NFL has to be based on some level of fairness. You have the players, you have the coaches, you have the referees, you have the commissioner, you have people that run investigations. Well, what the Democrats are basically trying to do, and they've been very good at it, and they've been very good at what they've done is they have the referees in favor of this particular football team. They have the commissioner in favor of this particular football team. The investigators in favor of this particular football team.
Are you talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, or?
Doesn't even matter. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? But the point is, it doesn't matter how talented you are, and this is what I think Trump is unfortunately running into, which is why we're speaking out about it, is you can be the best football team in the world, but if you have the refs all in favor of this particular team, the commissioner and everyone in favor of this particular team, which in this case is Kamala Harris, there's no chance you win. If your wide receivers are, you know, getting, you know, pass interference, you have guys holding, you have, you know, roughing the passer. I mean, there's just no way you win.
100%. Well, Chris, you're a sore loser. I mean, all the polls say that it's super close.
Well, the
What would
polls
you say to
also
that?
said in 2016 that Hillary was going to win by 95%, and Trump ended up wiping the floor with it. Why? Because he actually woke something up in the American people
Yeah.
and connected with Americans all across the country, and they underestimated the amount of support he had.
Totally agree.
Just like we pray that they're underestimating it now, but the concern is that they're playing chess and
Yeah.
they're prepared for this.
100%.
And I think it kind of ties into, so let's talk about the debate. So in
Yeah.
June, Biden and Trump debate.
Earliest debate that's ever happened in our country's history. Typically, guys, there's an order of things, and there's an order
Yeah.
of how to be. There's also something called being presidential. Maybe you've heard of that as well. And if you look at over the last 3.5 years, I want you to just take a look at 4 years. I want you to take a look at how Kamala and Biden have conducted themselves,
Yep.
the things that they've done, the traditions that they've ex-nayed, and the traditions they weren't a part of,
Yep.
that have carried on for years and years, and how they have not acted presidential. I want you to just think about how Trump, albeit his bedside manner might be a little crazier, his tweets might be a little crazy, even recently honoring with wreaths at the Arlington Cemetery
Yeah.
for those 13
Troops that were
troops that
killed.
passed away in Afghanistan,
Yep.
wrongfully so, because of Biden and Kamala
Incompetence.
Harris
Yeah.
specifically,
Yeah.
because she was the last one in the room saying that they should pull out, by the way.
Yeah.
He went and honored them while they were out doing some weird
Yeah.
LGBTQ community. But again, there's something about being presidential specifically.
Yeah.
But when you look at tradition, the debates typically happen midsummer, if not the end of summer.
Later.
So typically about
Yeah.
90 days prior to the actual election. So you would look at, roughly early August, maybe August it would be.
Yeah,
right?
August, September
August,
typically.
September, October. Yeah,
Yeah.
August. This thing was June.
Correct.
27th.
And
June 27th.
Yep. So that begs the question,
Well, why was
it done so early?
Sure.
Right. So then there's, a few trains of thought. If you talk to folks, there's Republicans that would say, this was God giving Trump a blessing, right? To show how, that Biden was going to be a disaster and Trump looked incredible. And he did. In fact, CNN was very fair, which is kind of interesting.
Interesting.
Right. It could possibly be that Biden is so arrogant and Biden, he thinks he's always been an egotistical senator or congressman his entire career. Frankly, he's a prick. So that's theory 2. Now, theory 3, which a lot of, conspiracy theorists, perhaps like us, would say that this was planned by the elites, by the establishment, by the shadow campaign, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And they did this to set him up for failure.
Because they knew.
Because they knew. And in fact, everyone knew, Cody.
Everyone knew.
Our podcast for the last 3 years, we've talked about this. Anyone who actually is a truth seeker and looks at alternative sources of news could tell you that this was going to be a disaster.
So the problem is, Chris, is that for the last 4 years, almost 5 years, we have had mainstream media, social media, and the people that you look up to and that you feel like you can trust telling you, do not believe your eyes.
Yeah,
That's not
do
true.
not.
You've been lied to and gaslighted
Everything,
this
yep.
entire time.
Yep.
So then you have the mainstream media leading up from January, February, March, April, May, June, saying that Joe Biden, Joseph Biden, is competent.
He's the sharpest we've ever seen. You had Joe Scarborough the week before saying, I just met with him in a room and he was commanding the room.
He looked incredible, unbelievable, and us, the people that have been lied to, that have been gaslighted, that are told, well, just don't believe your eyes, don't believe your eyes, right? Which we should trust our eyes.
Yeah.
We're seeing it like this guy can't even form a fucking sentence.
Correct.
No way
Can't even
this
walk
guy
off a
makes
stage.
it. He might die. I
Right.
don't know what's going on. God forbid. I don't wish death upon anybody. But this guy literally is at the end of his life. He's 81 years old. He
Yeah.
can't form a sentence.
Yeah.
He can't get in front of a mic. He doesn't know where he's at. He's yelling all the time. He's falling. He's got crazy. They pushed him. They pushed him. They pushed him. They went to the debate, and man, they walked him off that ledge.
Walked him off the ledge, and then literally immediately every media outlet was like, he needs to step down. The day before, a few days before, he's the sharpest ever. He's going to do great.
Yep.
The day after, we need to look at a replacement. Now, what's fascinating is after it happens, Biden was 100% committed. I am still running. I was elected by the people. I am the Democrat nominee. And then he meets with some folks, perhaps the folks that are actually running the show.
Ooh.
Yep, the puppeteers, if you will.
Yep.
And overnight, he says, I'm stepping down. I think Kamala's going to be better.
You know what's tough about that? Here's just a discerning eye. This whole time, we've been adamant about this guy being a puppet.
Yep.
Okay? And that he's senile and he's not all there and he doesn't understand that he's fucking up. And I'm not trying to not blame Joe Biden for all the things that he's done. However, the powers that be, we said that he's being a puppet and all this other stuff. And then he literally is walked down that path, walked down, as they call it in boxing. They walk him down, they walk him down, they walk him down. They throw him off the ledge. And he's still, in his mind, thinks that he's still doing a good job and that he did a good job, which means to me this entire time we've been right, that he thinks that he's doing a good job. He's being told otherwise, just like we all are, that he is doing a good job. And it's just, if that doesn't tell you that we've been right this entire time, that he's literally a puppet, I don't know what else does.
Yeah. Well, and then, so then it begs the question, so then who's running the show? So it's either Kamala Harris has been running the show, in which case she's responsible for the last 3.5 years, and that's what she's trying to separate, right?
That's why she didn't.
Or
that's why she
it's
didn't
non-elected bureaucrats or non-elected someone who's been running the show the whole time, right? So now Kamala comes in.
Well, let's go down both those angles, right? So if it is a bureaucratic party that is taking the quote-unquote puppets and so on and so forth, and Biden and Harris, and now Harris and Walz.
Installing them.
And installing them.
Running, doing what they're told.
Exactly, and they are playing chess. It's the powers that be. Well, then we have a bigger problem on our hands, don't we?
We have a much larger problem.
Okay. Then the other side, if it's just, Kamala Harris gets cooed in, which we'll talk about in a second. He gets cooed in, and she, through democracy, just evades democracy. She was the least. She got 0 delegates. She got zero
in 2020 when she was running against Biden, calling him a racist.
100%.
0. No one liked her.
How that works.
Yep.
Now she's all of a sudden the Democratic Party, and if you are a Democrat watching this, you got to be pissed off at some accord. I mean, you didn't even have a fair.
You didn't have a choice.
Election. You had no
there wasn't
choice.
Another debate. That's what it is.
This is your candidate, and now she spent 50 days, over 50 days, making a decision and not get in front of the media. Why is that? Twofold. Number one, she was practicing. She was at Camp David, and she was not in front of any media, or maybe one scripted interview or two. She was not in any interviews, any unscripted, any teleprompter-less conversations. Why? Well, for the 55 days prior to the debate, which we'll get to the second debate, she was practicing. She had the questions.
Of course.
She had perfect, eloquently timed, perfect responses.
It's almost like she had some earphones on.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man. I disagree, but I see what you're saying. But so there's two different
either
paths.
way.
But the point is, she also wanted to have a wow factor. So if I don't speak to somebody for 50 days and then I come eloquently coming correct with, and I'm anointed, specially anointed, and I've had all this preparation, someone's gonna be like, damn, that person's incredible. And that's how I felt when I watched the second debate. I'm like, whoa, where has this person been? I have all this track record and a social proof of her being literally an idiot. And then all of a sudden, now she's perfectly eloquent and everybody's watching. And it's because she practiced for 50 days. Number one, she had the questions prior. That's 100%. Now coming out. That's also coming out. She has all these things. But you look at that, and the other thing that she was doing is she was putting together answers for the question you just noted. If it was her in power this entire time, why has the country gone to hell in a handbasket? And she's worried about one question. What's the question? Well, if you've been in power this entire time, why haven't you done this shit now?
Well, so this is a great point. So as vice president, so Biden was just removed. The democratically elected nominee was removed against his will. Because of why? Because of cognitive impairment. No one thinks he can do it. He's too senile. So the vice president should, in theory, it's her duty actually to invoke the 25th Amendment to actually get him out and take the role of the president. Well, the problem is if she took the role of the president too early, well, then she would immediately be responsible for all the problems of these last 3.5 years. And her campaign is intentionally trying to separate this from her. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen a scene up from The Office, but let's say you were interviewing someone and they're like, I have the perfect plan to change your company and you will make billions of dollars. And you say, okay, well, tell me about that plan. And you say, well, you gotta you got to hire me first, and I'll give it to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what she's doing is she's trying to she doesn't want to take over the presidency because then she can be held accountable for the last 3.5 years. So they're just going to let him sit there, which is concerning. For the last 6-7 months, we're going to have a president who's literally we know is cognitively impaired.
Yeah.
And she's coming out there, and obviously she's got the media giving her softball questions. And I don't look at the debate as
She's
she
not
actually
even answering them.
I don't think here's my big problem with the debate, right? Is all it showed is that she is a politician.
Yep.
And it showed
a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Correct. And
100%.
This is what Malcolm X talks about. The Democrats are foxes that come after you. They're the biggest threat to the black community. My point is, it showed that she's a politician, and she gave really rehearsed answers. And of course, what do you call
Narrators.
them? The narrators.
Moderators.
The moderators weren't going to fact check her. And Trump.
Well, that's so interesting. It was 3-on-1. And look,
yeah.
The reality is, dude, when I watched that, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
When I was watching this, I watched it with Chloe, my fiance, who's a huge Trump person. And I'm sitting there super frustrated and upset.
Yeah.
I'm pissed off. I'm like, let's go walk. I can't even watch this because, truth be told, she got him on the defense. She got him frustrated. She sent him down rabbit holes because, again, she had the questions. She knew what the questions were going to be to him. So she can say something to emotionally charge him and send him down a path where he's reactive rather than proactive, where he loses his charisma and loses his special sauce that he always has.
But that's what happens when you're attacked.
Well, correct. I agree.
Yeah.
What it also showed me, but I was frustrated and I was like, dude, she kicked ass. But of course she kicked ass. She's a politician. She was rehearsed. She also showed her true colors. Look, Trump was Trump in that debate.
Correct. He's
Trump
authentic.
was Trump. She was not her.
Yep.
She was inauthentic.
Correct.
Because she was rehearsed. She said the same damn answers 2 weeks
later.
later.
When I was a little girl, I grew up in middle class America. I'm going to create an opportunity economy. What does that mean, Kamal? No one asked, what does that mean? Can you elaborate?
Just out of curiosity, guys, if you are giving money to small businesses or you're giving money to other places, where does that come from?
Correct.
That comes from printing more money, which increases inflation, or that comes from your tax dollars because you raise them.
Yeah, yeah.
That, if you really look at policy specifically and the things that they are looking at, you have Trump saying, I'm not going to tax tips. Well, of course, Kamala is going to.
Which was a terrible idea, media. That's a terrible idea. Then when Trump does it, or then when she does it, oh my gosh, it's the best idea I've ever heard. It's
payroll tax eliminated. Yeah. Well, that helps businesses. And little did you know, if you haven't known this, businesses, we run businesses, if payroll taxes are decreased, that's roughly 20 grand a month for us in our company.
Yeah.
You know what that does, guys? That allows me to hire 5 more people to help our loan officers.
Yeah.
If you do that on a company, a massive scale company, that's millions of dollars each and every month that they don't have to pay.
Correct.
And you do that, you reduce those taxes or taxes. Think about, dude, no taxes. I didn't mean to go down this policy.
No, you're good. You're good.
But these policies on no taxes on overtime, make America work hard again.
Yeah.
This guy, it's genius.
Genius.
It's genius.
Productivity is going to go through the wall.
Guys, of course. I heard something really interesting. Obviously we go to church. We're church guys. We go to Trinity Church. Shout out to Mark. But I heard something about a tithe, and a tithe is 10% of your annual income is what you should tithe, or you should donate, or you should give to church. And I feel like it should be the same way with our United States government. If you gave 10%, you know where the 10% was going, there was accountability with that 10%, the country would flourish. Unfortunately, biggest employer of the entire world right now, or at least the entire country, not world, I apologize, is the U.S. government.
Yeah.
It needs to be reduced by about 50 to 75%. And then you could reduce taxes, which will then make the country flourish. I mean, this place can look like Dubai inside of a year.
Literally. And it's not rocket science. It's really not. Cut regulation, drill, baby, drill. Bring manufacturing back to this country, reduce taxes, and productivity will skyrocket. Now, going real quick back to the debate, though, is, like you said, it was frustrating to watch. But again, Trump is being attacked. Kamala is saying just very vague. She's giving the perfect political answer. I believe in America that's for you, an opportunities economy,
vision.
Without anything. My point is, what's so frustrating about it, especially Americans, is every American at the dinner table, we all agree that politicians are liars, whether right and left. We all agree. So it's ironic, though, that the people, they want a politician to almost lie to them. When you have someone who's bluntly honest, who's truthful, who you know exactly what you're going to get, you crucify this guy. But when the politician comes out and tells you these vague things and sounds good, people want to be lied to. It
Because
feels
they've been
like
conditioned, man. Because
correct. That looks presidential.
It looks presidential, or you look at it and it's like, well, man, I remember 10 years ago or 20 years ago when Romney and that was in 10, 20 years, whatever it was, 15.
And Obama.
When Romney and Obama went together, and they were so presidential. They're both polished politicians.
Correct.
You know, the first part of politician is Paul, which is polished. They're polished. It's polished
correct.
politician.
Yeah.
That's how they roll.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the frustrating part. But at the end of the day, the debate really didn't move anyone either way.
I don't think so. I
It
think
had
if
no
you're
negative impact on Trump because we have already baked Trump into the cake. Kamal, it made her look potentially slightly competent, but as you'll see now is what she's struggling with is Trump isn't coming out as much to talking. That's intentionally done by his campaign because what it's doing is it's going to force Kamala to come out because we still haven't answered the questions. We don't know where she stands.
Yeah.
In 2020, her positions were completely different.
Well, they were so left. They were left to Bernie Sanders.
Exactly, but now she's coming back and changing things and giving no specifics.
What's the deal with that, man? Let's talk about that because it's total flip-flop on every single main policy.
Well,
You're talking
why
about
is that?
fracking, which is drilling, which is energy. If you decrease energy, guys,
Yep.
you decrease the cost of energy, here's what happens. The cost of diesel fuel goes down, specifically diesel fuel. Tractors, big trucks,
Yep.
jets, all of this runs off of energy. If we can drill here, the cost of energy goes down. The cost that it takes for us to get food from X, Y, or Z,
Yep.
or goods from X, Y, or Z, or to ship things back and forth goes down, which means costs go down. That is
Yep.
how
That's
things
it.
work. It's very simple. She wanted to ban fracking. She still does, but she's saying otherwise. Why
Because-
is she saying otherwise?
Because as a politician will do is they will say whatever they need to get elected. And this is the Democratic MO. Every 4 years they come out and say exactly what they want to hear,
2 years,
especially
governors,
yeah,
senators.
especially to, I think minority communities.
I agree.
Is we're going to save it and blame these evil racists. These are the guys for all your problems, and these same folks will vote for the same people after the last 40 years, even though their communities have gone to shit, the opportunities have gone down, there's crime rampant in their cities, they don't even have opportunities to get ahead. You know what I mean?
It's insane that someone could be, and again, it's conditioning. It's social media. It's the TV conditioning. People watch endless things on Netflix. They're just
TikTok,
numbing their brain. And it's the same thing on listening to the same politicians every 2 years. I mean, at some point, you hear the same fucking thing over and over again. You realize, like, damn, this person's full of shit. These people are full of shit. It's not just the person, it's the people. It's the people around them. And that happens to be the Democratic Party, unfortunately. Because the Democratic Party ain't Democratic no more.
No,
Because
it's
realistically,
not.
10
so
years
let's
ago,
let's
20
talk
years
about
ago-
this. This is really important.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, we've mentioned before that the Democrats historically were anti-war, anti-big pharma, anti big corporate greed.
Sure.
Now they are the party of that. And the biggest irony in this, I watched
The
a video.
warmongering.
I watched this interview with JD Vance, and he brings this
Industrial
up.
complex.
So Dick Cheney, who everyone attributes the Iraq War and to the biggest corruption
Watch
by the
Vice.
war
Watch
industrial
Vice.
complex,
Yep.
it was all Dick Cheney. Well, guess who Dick Cheney endorsed?
Yeah.
Oh, Kamala Harris.
Why?
So that's weird. So you have Bush era, who were the worst industrial complex, big Wall Street, big corporate greed. You have those Republicans now supporting Kamala. And then weird, you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Who's a
switching
lifelong
parties.
Democrat?
So you have
Elon Musk?
you have Democratic or Kennedy Democrats now supporting Trump. The one thing we can agree, we may not agree with everything about the Kennedys,
Sure.
but they loved America. And America was about America during the Kennedy administration.
correct. Well,
Before what happened? He started questioning things and he's
Boom.
gone.
Gone.
Weird, right?
And it's you're so right. And it's gone from like you said, anti-big government, anti-war, anti-this, and now they're all pro that.
Yeah.
And now the Republican Party it's completely flip-flopped.
Completely.
And it's just the only problem that you're having is that you can't identify that it's just identity politics. There's morals and things that you stand for, and whatever the name of that thing is,
Well,
doesn't have to be Democrat or Republican. All of us with American values, American morals, things that we stand for as a group and as a unit, that right now happens to be Republican. It didn't used to be
No,
that
it didn't.
way.
And
It's
that's why we're not
changed.
Republicans. We're America first.
Yes.
We're patriots.
Correct.
We believe in this country. And I think, though, the one
People
disadvantage,
can't fathom that.
they
though,
can't
Chris.
fathom that.
It's Democrat or Republican.
Well, and so
It's
that's the
bi.
problem is people become so
Bipolar.
tribal I'm a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. No matter what the Democrats do, I'm going to support them. And there are also Republicans, and no matter what the Republicans do, I'm going to support them, right? And frankly, I will flip-flop left and right. It just depends on who's got America's agenda first. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Now, the one disadvantage that I think that conservatives have is, conservatives by nature, we want to conserve American values. We want to conserve the Constitution. We want to follow the laws, right?
Yeah.
Whereas we talked about the NFL analogy where the Democrats just want to win, and they will do whatever they can. And so that's why they use the judicial system to go after folks. And it's almost like it's a football game where the refs are on this side's team, and they will do whatever it takes to win. And that's why I think Republicans are at a disadvantage, because inherently we are conservative.
Right.
Inherently we don't want big change. This is why we believe in the checks and balances of our government.
Yep.
The Democrats, on the contrary, will use their DOJ, whatever it is, the CIA, they will use every weapon that they have at their disposal to win. And unfortunately, this election feels like it's one of those that we may get to a point that we can't turn back.
I agree. They are playing something, I talk about it with our guys all the time, but they're playing a finite game that might be an infinite game pretty quick. So an infinite game is something where there's no set of rules and it's everlasting and it's ever going.
Correct.
A finite game has a set of rules. There's a timeline, like a football game, for example.
Yeah.
Every 4 years, an election. It feels like, based off of the moves that they've made, that I'm not being a sore loser, it's just facts.
Yeah.
That this might be an infinite game that we play where every election is questioned. Every single politician is going to go up against a realist, American first person. And our values as a group is going to continue to move on, and we're not going to sway from those values. So it's going to be, and I hate to say it, there's a civil war looming.
I mean, potentially.
It feels that way.
And what people don't realize, too, is once you get rid of the Constitution, these checks and balances that we've had forever that
I hope not.
allow for some level of progressiveness, they like to be called progressives, but what you don't understand is the ultimate end in any civilization is going to end up authoritarian. And just because right now it might be your side winning, you got to think long term, and you don't know who the leader is going to be down the road. And if we get rid of our elections are fraudulent, we're no different than Venezuela or these other countries where you have Maduro in there, and these elections are all bullshit, and then they gun down other people.
It's a banana republic.
It becomes a banana republic. And the problem is, once you get rid of that and the West falls, especially America, it may never happen again.
People don't understand.
It may never happen
you
again.
Just said, man, the West falls. The reason why that's so important is because we're the only country. We're the first of its kind. There was a melting pot of people and a democracy, and a voting system, and capitalism, and a constitution.
Yep.
We broke away from England. We broke away from the UK. We broke away from Great Britain. And we developed these certain things that we stood for, and those things happen to have lasted for the last 250 plus years.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, if those things go away, then we're just like everybody else. There is one other place that was like America, and it happened to be Rome way back in the day, and Caesar was the head,
created
and guess what? Boom, created democracy,
legal
and so
system, and
everything was
language,
just like it.
mathematics,
Caesar died and Rome fell.
Yeah.
And we don't want that to happen. Speaking of Caesar dying and Rome falling, a couple assassination attempts.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, what a transition that just came.
Incredible.
You're welcome.
Incredible.
Anyways, we had two, and we're completely desensitized to the fact. There's two specifically that we'll talk about. And man, I really hope that people wake the fuck up and realize that this is a real thing, and there's real lives at stake.
Yeah.
There's a real human being that passed away and that died. There was multiple injured at Butler, and let's talk about that one first.
Yeah.
July 13th-ish of this year, which is 2024, this human being.
This kid who came out of nowhere.
Why is it too? Because we're going to talk about their names. I don't like even fucking mentioning their names because I have to go down in the history books. Why do they always have three names? Like Thomas Matthew Crooks, Harvey Lee Oswald way back in the day. Isn't that weird how they always use three names?
Well, so you're telling the 20-year-old kid who has no social media presence, came out of nowhere, was able to drone the area prior to, was able to evade Secret Service, was able to get on a roof at the highest point with snipers apparently everywhere, and missed by less than an inch.
Half an inch.
Now that is, whether you believe it or not, whether you're religious or not, that is a turn.
Divine design.
That is literally
you're talking about
divine design.
So it's in Butler, Pennsylvania. We're having a rally, the MAGA folk and Donald Trump. And typically, when he stands, there's big projectors and screens, and typically a statistic that happens to be about immigration
ironic, right?
was always on the left, or is typically on the left, and it was on the right.
Yeah.
And he went to go to the right to look at it, and at that second,
Missed
at
by a
that
second.
split second, you get missed by this guy who, again, you guys got to understand when the Secret Service, which you don't have presidential level detail, he doesn't, but he has detail, which is important. They go and they canvass the area prior.
Yeah.
So they go look at things. They see where the high points are. They make sure their snipers are typically at the highest points. They go and search each and every building, each and every room. They make sure that there's no vantage points. And if you haven't seen that movie, it's actually a really good movie called Vantage Point. But there's no vantage points of which the president, sitting president, or otherwise, or politician, or whoever it might be, specifically the Secret Service. I mean, this is their job, right?
Yeah.
That there's no opportunity for someone to get a shot off or anything to happen. They have bomb dogs. They have all kinds of things prior. They search backpacks. I mean, if you've been to a rally, like the one up here, so on and so forth in Phoenix, like they do a really, really good job, but not on this one.
Not on this one. And it's weird timing again. The cases start falling apart. Georgia case, New York case, these are all bogus cases.
Are you talking about the 34 criminal indictments that Trump
where
has?
Where they changed the laws, they just had to tie it into one.
Yeah.
And then,
isn't it funny, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, just got indicted because he's going against
Convenient. He's not
and then
listening.
all of his staff, by the way, this is, what day is it? September 26th when we're recording this. And there's a lot of weird stuff going down in New York.
Yep.
There's the National Guard's there. The mayor is getting indicted on multiple different charges.
Yep.
His staff is already in jail and in prison.
Yep.
Just stay tuned.
Fascinating. So regardless, the shot goes off, and by divine design, the guy makes it.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, he stands up and says, "Fight, fight, fight," which is arguably the most patriotic, most epic scene.
Yeah.
Because they say, every man says, "I'd be tough, I'd fight that guy, I'd say something," until you're actually there. Until the shots are being fired. And that guy gets up and says, "Fight, fight, fight." Now, the biggest frustration is social media companies and Google were trying to hide that image because that image made him look like the most presidential president, a Lincoln-esque figure, a Washington-esque figure.
Yeah.
He looked that heroic. Yeah. And they were trying to censor that for a very long time. It's difficult, actually, to find that photo, which is the most infuriating part.
It's on photos, or it's on shirts now. It's on everybody. I know what you're saying. Yeah, it really is. And, dude, I mean, when it got me super emotional when I was watching. I was in bed at the time. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday. I was watching football or something like that with Chloe.
Yep.
It got me super emotional when I saw it, and you and I texted immediately, and we were talking back and forth. But yeah, I mean, just look, a lot of you guys haven't even been in a fist fight. A lot of you guys can't even stand up to your own students, or I'm sorry, your teachers and your schools where your kids are.
Yeah.
Your employers. You're too scared to quit.
The neighbors,
your
the
job.
HOA. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're too scared to quit your job, and you're getting pounced on each and every day by your boss, and you hate your boss, but you continue to take it.
Yep.
You're soft and you're weak and you're woke. And then you have the audacity to judge somebody who just got shot in the ear and stands up when there's 15 Secret Service agents, some of them were, some of them weren't, that's why I did this, and that are all around him, and he says, "Move out of the way," and they didn't even know if there was a second shooter. He said, "Fight, fight, fight," with blood running down his face.
Yeah.
Incredible. You couldn't do that. Nope, there's a small percentage of human beings that would do that.
Yeah.
They would go like this, and they'd be right out with Secret Service, and they would get on the car and they would leave.
Yeah, truly incredible.
It really is, and the guy got taken down. I will say, it's unfortunate that obviously there was a loss of life there, which is crazy.
Yeah.
The nut job thing that I think of, Chris, as we go through these assassinations, and we're nearing the end, by the way, is this guy was 20 years old. So for since 2016, which is about 8 years since he was 12 years old, which 12 years old is really when you start to watch the TV and understand what's going on, all he's seen is the mainstream media and everyone that's out there, or social media, because a lot of those kids from 12 to 20, think about how influential social media is, that's being pushed down his throat that Donald Trump is the biggest threat to democracy and threat to the U.S. that anything has ever seen in their entire life.
Yeah.
And they keep talking about specifically, and there's multiple different layers of this, of people saying that he should be dead, whether it be a Shakespearean New York play, or Madonna saying that he should be dead, or there's all kinds of different things that are saying and promoting violence,
Yeah.
and death and killing Donald Trump specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if the tables were turned and it was a conservative that shot at Biden? It would be, I mean, just think of January 6th, which literally he said peacefully and patriotically. Literally, Nancy Pelosi didn't want the National Guard. Right. She admitted it on video that it was her fault.
Right.
You have police officers escorting people in. People are following the lines in most cases. You have police officers escorting the big shaman guy. So, and January 6th was talked about to this day. They're still bringing this up. In the debate, they fucking brought up. In the debate, they were lying about the Charlottesville stuff. All these things which have actually been even debunked by CNN as we walk. But can you imagine? This was on the news for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, tops, about the Trump assassination.
Yeah.
And media stopped reporting on it.
Yeah.
If it had been done on Kamala or Biden or an Obama or a Clinton, this would be the biggest story. This would never be talked about. This would be the worst than January 6th. This would be worse than Pearl Harbor. This would be worse than 9/11.
But it's because this guy that they keep wanting to kill, then this
they
is
can't stop him.
You know what's interesting? JFK, Martin Luther King, Ronald Reagan, Abraham Lincoln, Malcolm X, all of these folks, now Donald Trump and many others, all of these folks are standing up to the left, the Democratic Party. Even some of them, of which I just said, JFK, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, known Democrats, they stand up to the establishment. They stand up to the powers that be, the bureaucracy, the people behind the scenes, and they stand up to Democrats specifically in the left. And guess what? They all die or get assassination attempts.
Yeah. If you stand up against the establishment or whatever it is, you'll be taken out. I mean, it's a very eerie thing.
It's insane.
And
Go for it.
No, that's it. I mean, if it had happened to anyone else other than Trump, it would be world news. We'd still be talking about it today. It would be something that we hold a moment of silence for. 100%. For Trump, it is what it is.
Well, it's just the normalization.
Move on.
Normalization.
Which brings on then the next one, which happened when?
Right. It was September 16th, so 10 days ago.
Yeah, so I don't even know, I forget the guy's name.
Brian Wesley Ralph.
Okay, so I
don't know why I have these names.
Again, if you study these things too, the origin of where they came from is very fascinating.
Yeah, hey, wait, aren't they both in something? They're both in, that's right, a commercial.
Yeah, a BlackRock
commercial. They're both
commercial.
in BlackRock commercials.
Ironic, huh?
Isn't that ironic?
And this guy, if you study him at all, he apparently is Chris, unemployed.
You're telling me that both of these guys are in a BlackRock commercial?
They are.
They are.
Look this up.
Yeah.
Don't take our word again for any of this. Question all of us. I hope you can get on here and prove to me that what we're saying is wrong. But what you're going to find is, holy shit, these guys are right.
Right. Yeah.
And it's going to be infuriating, but that may be the wake-up moment you need.
Yeah.
And this guy comes out of nowhere too. He doesn't have a job. He goes to Ukraine and fights in a war, which is very.
He tried to. He wanted to.
He still went there. He's traveled the world. He's had criminal charges. This is a typical CIA operative that came out of nowhere. Brought guns to the Mar-a-Lago golf course.
So lots coming out over the last 10 days. The FBI is conducting the investigation.
Of course.
And DeSantis is obviously
because
stepped in.
The FBI investigations go nowhere.
This guy's been there since April, and his cell phones, all 6 of them, have been pinged. Where do you get 6 cell phones if you're a broke guy? Have been pinged near that golf course in West Palm Beach. He's been there since April, and he has been staying at hotels, paying in cash. I don't know where you get that cash. He has 6 different cell phones. I said that. There was notebooks trying to figure out where his whereabouts were. And the interesting thing, because we haven't talked about the Secret Service and how there's probably a mole inside of his detail. The interesting thing, guys, is that Trump didn't have it on the books that he was going there that day. And a lot of folks are like, well, someone had to tell him. Well, here's the other thing, though. If the guy's been there since April and he's been around that area, it's kind of a timing thing, and it's kind of a numbers game, because it is Trump's golf course. I'm not saying that there wasn't a mole, but it is Trump's golf course. He does play there often. He does live down the road. He has been there since April, and there's been multiple times where he has been at the spot where they found him with the barrel through the bushes. So it's almost a timing thing. However, he wasn't supposed to be there that day.
Which is, I mean, again, and then did they even talk about it? They barely talk about it. This is barely a story. I don't even know if you go, MSNBC, CNN, I don't even know if they reported it. This is maybe on Fox News for a little bit.
They said the demeanor when they picked him up. So he was in the bushes, and it was on hole 6, and he had his, I think it was hole 6. He had his barrel through. It was a makeshift AK-47 with a scratched out serial number. And if you have a scratched out serial number on any gun, period,
Yep.
and it's not registered to you, that's a felony.
Yep.
So when they picked him up and when they found him and so on and so forth and got Trump away, his demeanor was that of he was on the beach. He was smiling and having a good time.
Yeah.
Well, why would he feel that way? Interesting, right?
Yeah.
He also just wrote, too, that if anybody finishes the job, this Ryan Wesley Routh guy will give $150,000 in cash to whoever finishes the job.
Wild.
Isn't that insane?
Wild. And it's just not even talked about. Again, if this was a conservative, this would be the alt-right, domestic terrorist, the biggest threat to our democracy.
Sure.
We got to stop them. It's such a threat. And we literally are watching it, and there's absolute silence from the mainstream media. It's the most infuriating thing.
You're talking about the death of a human being. And that's what I look at. And look,
A presidential assassination,
I would
too.
never, ever want Kamala Harris dead. I
No.
would never want Joe Biden.
But
That's
then you have
insane.
people on the left who are literally saying,
Oh,
I wish they hit him.
Wish it would have hit him.
How do you have that much vitriol in you? Like, you're truly a vile human being if you want that against
Trump
someone.
derangement system. And they also, because, Chris, they're looking on their phone, all they're doing all day is looking at porn and death, and they're playing video games and death, and they're completely desensitized to what actual human life is. And then you have COVID that has sat them in their ass in a seat in their house. They've deteriorated. Their health is shit. They don't give a shit about anything other than what they were used to and what they've the habits that they've created over that time frame. And they haven't got back to the real world. And they haven't been outside. I don't know. There's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot, and I pray that's the last one. But if I was a betting man, I think there's going to be others.
Yeah.
But I do believe that if this is what God wants, Trump's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think they can stop him. I mean, you see the satanicness in the world. You see this pure evil and this vitriol and this hatred and this just strangeness going on. And so it does. I have this optimism and this feeling that we're going to come out triumphant.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're doing this. You know, and you said God. And look, the guys, I'm telling you right now, what this is all about, this is not about left versus right.
No,
this is about up versus down.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is about hell versus heaven. I'm telling you right now,
good versus evil.
I promise you it's good versus evil. It is not left versus right. And you got to hop on the good foot and do the bad thing and hop on the Jesus train, my friend. And you got to hop on the up train, because if you don't, there's going to be a rude awakening for you and your family, and you need to do so.
Yeah.
And look, we got 40-ish days before the election. You guys are going to have 2 more of these episodes. So the only thing that we can do, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack here. I mean, immigration, assassination, the debates that we went through, but all kinds of stuff. But the only thing that we can ask is for you to like, subscribe, share the episode. We're for sure getting shadow banned talking about this stuff, but we're going to continue to put it out.
Do what we can.
Because it's super important that we do so in the name of democracy. So.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy.
So, all right, brother.
Good shit.
Good shit.
Love you. See ya.
Love you too.